I don't do it, we'll leave some for them to do. There we go, another 2 more died on the edge. They're all dying. Don't do it, we've got to give them a bit of responsibility. Why did I bother? Some of the timber I bought in here, I'm really questioning today if I don't just slip it in the back of the car and take it away and use it for my own purposes, because honestly, they're going to come in here and they're going to cover the pipe and plant the rest, and the woman who has been helping with all this is not here this week. I think the bugs are sitting into that one. And I really question if there's a point in me getting the mattock out, which I've already got in the back of the car, and digging out another square to nab some screws to deal with this. Might as well just chuck it over the fence, load it in the vehicle and be done with it. Otherwise it'll just sit there in the bloody rain. It's a bit of a disappointment, really. That was going to be concreted in. No. Nobody's done a damn thing. Except possibly throw the chair out here. And somehow though, we managed to buy more lettuce and a bunch of flowers. Waiting for what? Waiting for me to do it, or? Bit disappointed, really, because it's not even finished and it's been forgotten about. You know, you think you finish these things, people will be enthused, and away it goes. Didn't even get finished and it's just ignored. Anyway, it's like at all the things, like some of you guys who helped e-beggars, you help them once or twice. When they don't help themselves, well, guess what? You get the general idea of who you're dealing with, and you fail to see a point to continue to help them. And I'll put it this way, I won't be donating much more gear. So they can't even flame and use what is donated. They wanted it, wanted to build a bird's nest, you know, and all this sort of stuff, and I thought, it's not going to happen. No. I thought if it does, I'll bring the appropriate wood, but here we are. Enough wood for another planter box. It's not going to happen. Bloody big joint, this one. Huge. There's only a couple of guys playing around with a forklift in these back sheds. Absolutely massive. And surprise, surprise, this goes for quite a way. I'll keep rolling. Surprise, surprise. Oh, this is all closed. Dead horse, whole lot of it. Blooming overhead stuff for all conveyor belts running. You got to see the electrical setup to believe it. Look, bloody pylons coming in and everything. That's what you call on the grid. just to get around this, it's damn near 3/4 of a mile, I reckon. I've been inside all this. I had to deliver stuff here once when it was all still going. Look at the size of some of the... That's just the maintenance workshop there at the end. Flipping huge. That's where I had to go to deliver parts for something. All gone, all closed, all finished. I remember once upon a time there, they were... when I was working at the nursery, doing something about $17, $18 an hour. Guys were doing the same sort of thing in that area for the other side of it all there. They were doing the same thing I was doing for $17 an hour for $32 an hour. So, you know, closing in on bloody double the pay, and yet now they're all up shit creek. I've just been going, looking around for more stuff today, as you could well imagine. Yeah. Couple of positives there. There's a demolition joint, and I'll be stuffed if, like, they got several yards, had trouble finding where they are, how to get into them, and I'll be stuffed if I didn't meet the bloody owner today, or one of the sons of the original founder. And yeah, it went quite well. I had a little chat there for a few minutes, went to another joint that was a skip bin place, and after a bit of talking, I ended up telling him that I did work at another skip bin joint that wasn't terribly good. He's looking for people with more experience in driving, but he said, look, if I had enough stuff, would start you off initially just sorting through all the stuff, pulling out of the scrap metal and all the cardboard and the bricks, because they're all sort of recyclable, and it cuts down on their cost of landfill. And we had a good chat there for more than 5 minutes, you know, and he said it's sort of, yeah, interesting, you know, different people who can't use different machines. He said a lot of these things, it's hand-eye coordination. If you've spent so long on a forklift, you're going to be fine at you know, dealing with excavators or anything like that. Yeah, had a bit of a chat there for a while, and he said, I'll tell you what, 80 to 90% of the people I hire are guys who come in the door like you. He said, because I really appreciate people walking in through the door, as opposed to, you know, a random little phone call, because when they're willing to turn up their resume in hand in person, he said it means a whole lot more. And he said 80 to 90% of everybody I've employed has come to me that way. So it was positive. I've often enough they have a you know, quick flick through your resume and you're just out the door straight away, or they don't even lie, I'll just hand it on, that's it, you know. And oh, this guy, yeah, he's going on for more than 5 minutes. So it's sort of a lot of places are just slow, just winding down. You know, one joint I went into there appeared in the newspaper because they make basically power poles completely out of what's his name? Plastics, basically. I think they're carbon fibre or some sort of a glass fibre or something with plastic around it. And of course, as a result, they've got all these, you know, no conductivity sort of status and all that sort of thing. And yeah, went in there and, oh, look, mate, we put off 4 people last week. You think, shit. But there's a lot of joints where, I mean, most of the places are either just hanging on, busting a hang on to who they've got, or going through a slow period, or winter's our slow period, summer's our fast period, which is what I sort of feared. And I sort of knew that in the back of my mind. That a lot of places, it seems the entire economy gets rolling really fast here. I mean, it's just almost chaos sometimes. You know, in the early thousands before the GFC, in the summer, shit, people were working so much overtime, and you know, 100-degree days, and they'd be going bloody 12 hours a day most days, and you know, a lot of work, and a lot of worn-out people, but a lot of money too. And you know, winter's just a bad time for that. And there's other joints that sort of, you know, are just putting people off, and there's no joints that are really getting any bigger. They're just, you know, either in a slow period or putting people off. So anyway, we keep on trudging around. I'll go to another demolition joint now that's got a yard over. It's very hard. A lot of these guys, you look them up and you'll find out their home address, which is probably, I don't exactly want to turn up their house. You'll find out a couple of the yards, and possibly, if you're lucky, their salvage yard where they actually have an office there. And if you find some of the yards, often enough you go there and all there is just all these old bricks laying around, and all the employees' cars behind a bunch of locked gates. And so you got to get there at bloody 6 AM or something to even, you know, come across a boss, because quite simply, you know, they don't even have an office open. All you've got is a cell phone number, and that's it, you know. So, anyway, one of them's got a salvage yard that was closed the other day, and I'm going to see if that's open and have another shot there. Oh, I've got all the stuff done out there with the, what's his name anyway? Sorting out the potting mix inside that IBC that's sitting out there. Not the one in the mint, but the empty one behind it. Pulled all the weeds out, rehydrated. I couldn't believe, for all the bloody rain, it's all great for the first, like, 3/4 of an inch, and then there's like a dry patch there. It's like, is this shit for real or what? Sort of smells a little bit rotten too. I think the drainage in it is fine, but I don't know. The old potting mix might have just be going a bit funny. Just hope it is going to drain out properly. And yeah, I could have put these two in, but we're starting to get cold, and my hands are already cold enough and wet enough. So I ended up just going and getting a bunch of box store, and I'd run out all the containers in the house, all the, you know, stuff like this. Well, that's actually some of the termite stuff, but yeah, went and got a bunch of wood basically, and there was a bit more pine, and I got a bunch of box on too. Yeah, just thinking a bit about the sheep and that. Father said to me, look, it just can't be helped that some of them are being lost. It's a little bit more to some of these ones looking skinny. I believe I misdiagnosed one, and I got the answer pretty square in my face the other day, and the penny dropped later. Some of these ones genuinely, you know, get stuck in labour and it kills them. With some of these other ones that had a labour that started and then stopped, it's not that they're hungry, it's actually that they're old. And it can be quite hard to tell the difference between a sheep that is starting to starve, basically, and just an old sheep. Because old sheep, generally speaking, look thin. They look like they're starving. And it's very hard to sort of tell the difference between a young sheep starving and just an old sheep. One of the dead giveaways generally is to look at the condition of the teeth. Now, I didn't open the mouth of any of these sheep to see what the teeth were like. That can be a big indicator, especially if they're losing them, if they've got a hell of a lot of green stuck on them. It's, you know, that can be an indicator. You do get younger ones that have some. There's one that hangs around here, and my father's seen it and I've seen it, and it's just never puts on weight. It's always skinny. We assume it's some sort of a digestion problem or something like that. There are no signs of worms in any of the other sheep, so it's not going to be worms in it. But it's just, you know, it's like people. You get the old shonky one, but with people you got some fandangle medicine to treat it with, you know. And yeah, well, not quite so when it comes to getting veterinary supplies here and even diagnoses. There's one that my father had. I don't know if it was that same one, and it may have been that same one that looks rather skinny. Went and had a look at its teeth, and for some reason in its cheeks it's got all this blooming grass built up, going rotten inside its cheeks. So he plucked it all out of its cheeks, you know, and it's like, why did it not eat that grass? It's just bizarre. And he said it wasn't fresh grass, it was just that going rotten. And just holding it in its cheeks, you know, and dirty teeth and all this, and it's like, what is going on here? Who knows? Maybe the thing's got, I don't know, can't move its tongue very well or something. You wouldn't really know. But as I was saying, back to the point, some of the dead giveaways are the difference between, it's not usually an easy dead giveaway to pick an old sheep that looks thin to a young sheep that's starving, except for the condition of the teeth, which may indicate or may really not, but that's one of your clues, but may not necessarily give you 100% correct diagnosis, because there are old sheep that still have, you know, teeth that are pretty good, but usually that'll be one of them, condition of the teeth. And the other thing is, and you can't sort of pick it necessarily easily, especially if they've been shorn recently, is the way the wool's growing. Now, a younger sheep will have longer wool, like if they're all shorn at the same time, which they are, the older sheep will have shorter wool than a younger sheep. And it's just because as their bodies age and the, you know, metabolism is getting slower and everything's starting to wear out and slow down, they just don't grow wool as fast. But the other big one, especially as the wool's starting to get a little bit longer, the time from when you last shore them is getting, you know, longer, their wool will look more ragged and weather-beaten. Now, you'll have a young sheep and the wool will be tightly packed together. It'll have all the right little wiggles in it that it has for, you know, the crinkles that you have in wool. And yeah, the meat breeds have terribly big crinkles. The wool breeds have finer crinkles because that's good for clothing, whereas your bigger crinkles is shit. It's only good for stuffing and carpets, basically. And what will happen is it's a bit like a well-fed teenage girl versus some old woman who's about 70 years old with grey hair and split ends. It's the same sort of a thing. Your younger sheep will have longer wool, the crinkles will be nice and tight and perfect, whereas the older sheep will have shorter wool because it's growing slower, but then that wool will sort of look more weather-beaten, more scraggly, more gangly, and not sort of sticking to its perfect curve and tightly packed. It's no longer tightly packed, it's very loose, and it's not sort of holding its shape well. It just sort of looks very weather-beaten and scraggly sort of thing, and that's another one. And the third one which really flaming, I remember now, only from 15 years ago, and only from, you might have heard me say about the sheep leg that I was feeding the cats, and I said, ugh, it kind of stinks, or that meat kind of stinks, and I was standing at the table, and I was saying how, you know, I'd given them the fourth leg or whatever, and or the third leg, and the meat sort of stunk. Both of those last two legs off that sheep who's, I found it couldn't even put its head up, that had gone into labour and the labour had stopped. Both of those legs, the meat stunk a little bit. Now, 15 years ago, it might have been even more, might have been 16 or 17, I think it might have been 17 years ago. It was quite a long time ago when I was a teenager. We obviously butcher our own meat, and we used to do younger sheep. Well, this one year we decided that the numbers were a bit lower, and we wanted to keep the younger sheep for breeding, and we didn't have enough wethers, which is castrated males, to butcher. So I said, well, what are we going to do? Well, we'll get rid of the old ones because they're sort of not as likely to live as long, and they're not going to have as many lambs for the rest of their life as the younger ones will. Younger ones have got plenty of years ahead. So we killed a few of these older ones. Oh, there's several differences you notice. One being that the ribs are very thin comparative to another. The ribs are only like, it's like osteoporosis. The ribs are only like little more than half the thickness of a younger sheep. And the biggest one you notice, because it's just not unnoticeable, is the meat stinks like shit. It's good to get a sheep that's, you know, 2 to 3.5 years old and butcher that. You don't want to butcher one over 5 years old, and you definitely don't want to butcher one that's about 8 or 9 years old, which is exactly what we've done, because the meat will absolutely stink like shit. And I mean, it's that bad that your dog probably wouldn't eat it. It just smells like guts, I suppose you'd say. Generally speaking, guts only smell like guts when they're outside and they're starting to go yuck in the hot sun. And they, you know, you won't smell gut smell on meat. When you pick up meat in the supermarket freezer, it doesn't stink. It just smells pretty straightforward. Until the sheep gets rather old, and then the meat really stinks. And that was one mistake that we made that time, or we never made again. And the penny dropped later after smelling those last two legs that I gave the cats. It was, you know, it was just a little bit of a stink to it, and yet it shouldn't have stunk. And that was the thing. The sheep was old. And when it comes to nutrition and things that are hard on the body, sometimes a pregnancy in an old sheep is the last straw, and it finishes them. And, you know, they've put all that energy into the lamb, and then they, you know, all the nutrition of the lamb, all the energy into the lamb, and it's draining their body so much that when it comes time, the point that they go into labour, they just don't have enough strength to even get it out of them. And it's just the final straw. It's just that bit too much nutritional and energy stress on an old body. It's as simple as that, you know. And that is not the cause of all of them, but the cause of some of them that have gone down in this process. Was, you know, combine that with a bad year where the grass ain't growing enough, and that, you know, it's an inevitable case. You know, there's all the odds are against them, basically. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. You know, the thing is, old sheep die. Like a lot of there's people who just won't keep sheep past a certain age, and they'll piss them all off to the abattoir. They'll sell them off, you know. that's not us. A lot of sheep that are here are, you know, mainly the females. Like the males will sell them off and piss them off. Especially if the numbers are getting high, that's when we piss off all the castrated males, just get rid of them all, sell them all off. They have, you know, good wool, but they're not going to reproduce themselves anymore, sort of thing. So you keep all the females, and there's a lot of the females which literally just die of old age here, you know, and it's as simple as that. And other people will get all these ones and say, okay, well, when they hit the 7-year-old mark or whatever, I'm pissing them all off, you know, and we don't do that. We just let them die of old age. So as a result, you know, you end up with more dying than we otherwise would on larger farms that are, you know, ran on a commercial basis as a family business sort of thing with, you know, bloody 5,000 acres worth of land to, you know, have sheep or whatever, and that's, you know, that's their day job sort of thing, is just 100% sheep. In that case, you know, they manage things more for a commercial point of view where, you know, it's a bit like the government buying cars. The government will resell the car before it starts to become a old liability, or the insurance is going to go up because of this or that, or, you know, same with government school buses, stuff like that. Well, in the States, the school buses here are as old as hell, but it's one of those things. They've got a sort of calculated time when they piss it off, and they won't have it over a certain age because then the likelihood of needing repairs are higher, and its usable life. Boom, boom. Some people are like that with sheep. Not so much here. You know, they get to live their entire life out here, and so long as they're a female, and or the rams who are usable males, they will literally drop dead. And we had one drop dead, 2 months ago or something like that, and he just died of old age as well. And you can tell by looking at him, he was bloody old. I don't know how he even mounted the sheep because he's battling a flaming walk normal, but yeah. So as a result out of that, we, by definition, are going to have more die than people who deliberately get rid of them at a certain age, just for commercial purposes. Yeah.